Today we're going to be going over the new tier sets for Season 3 of The War Within, patch 11.2. Historically, tier sets were tied to either a class ability, or later they were tied to a specialization of a class, giving you some sort of buff. And in the latest patch, the one we're in right now, 11.1, Blizzard has decided to generalize them and, give every specialization some sort of quirk. For example, all healers are playing around with insurance, which more often than not basically enhances your major healing cooldowns. But now, in the new and upcoming update, Season 3 of The War Within, patch 11.2, the tier set bonuses are going to be directly tied to your hero talent trees. For example, for Paladin, for Holy Paladin, I can either play Herald of the Sun or Lightbringer, and I'm going to get different bonuses depending on what talent tree build I'm in, which makes it super interesting because, for example, the whole Season 1, I used the first talent tree, the whole Season 2, I used the second talent tree as a Holy Paladin, and now I'm hoping that in Season 3, I'm going to be using both depending on the encounter or the specific thing I'm doing. Alright, so let's start off with DK. First, we got Deathbringer. This one is, I believe, for Frost and Blood. Casting Reaper's Mark grants 2 or 1 maybe, stack of Exterminate with 150% first scythe and 125% second scythe effectiveness. So just added AoE on top of the damage we already have. And then the force-set is going to cause so that your Blood, Frost, Unholy, this is just a aura. It's gonna obviously be for the, for only Blood and Frost. Unholy cannot be Deathbringer. Reaper's Mark can stack up to 15 additional times and increase your critical strike chance by 10% after it explodes. So just passive abilities, not really something you play around, but that's good either way. Now we got Rider of the Apocalypse. This is for the DPS specs. Apocalypse now summons Whitemane for 10 seconds. Whitemane's Undeath deals 10% increased damage and affects one additional target when it spreads. And her Death Coil deals 35% increased damage. And of course, for, Pillar of Frost, now summons Trollbane for 10 seconds. Trollbane's Icy Fury deals 10% increased damage, and his Obliterate deals 35% increased damage. That's the 2 set. And then the 4 set causes your Death Coil or Epidemic, orders Whitemane to cast her Death Coil or Epidemic alongside you at 125% effectiveness. Your Death Coil deals 40% increased damage to targets affected by Whitemane's Undeath. And then for Frost, causing Obliterate or Frost Scythe, orders Trollbane to cast his Obliterate or Frost Scythe alongside you with 100% effectiveness. Your Obliterate deals 20% increased damage to targets affected by Trollbane's Ice Fury. So, just again, added throughput. Now we got Sanilin, which can be used by Unholy DK and by Blood. Infliction of Sorrow extends the duration of your disease by an additional 3 seconds on your main target. And Essence of the Blood Queen additionally increases your mastery by 0.8% per stack. And the 4 set causes your Blood Beast lasts an additional 4 seconds, and Vampiric Strike increases the melee attack power of your dancing rune weapons by 10% for 6 seconds. Multiple applications might overlap. And for Unholy, Blood Beast lasts for an additional 4 seconds, and Vampiric Strike increases the melee attack power of your ghoul by 10% for 6 seconds. Multiple applications might overlap. Very raw throughput for Death Knight. Nothing special, really. Nothing you're going to be playing around. I really like the Rider of Apocalypse theme, where you're summoning, you're causing your minions, so to speak, to do additional stuff, your riders. And I think this might be really fun to play. But either way, this seems like very just raw throughput, percent increases, deals 40% increased damage, deals 20% increased damage, melee attack power by 10%. So very raw, but I still like it. It's probably going to be pretty fun to play, as I said, especially the Rider of Apocalypse. And this is how it's going to look like. I think it looks pretty solid. It looks pretty badass. I mean, you can never miss with DK. So we're moving on to Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter obviously has only 2 specializations, which also gives them only 2 hero talent choices. They have Reaver, Aldrachi Reaver, and Felscard. And both tank and DPS can use either of these. Havoc and Vengeance, but just going to give you a quick little idea. There's been some talks going around that Demon Hunter will receive its 3rd Void-themed specialization. But as of right now, we have not gotten any confirmation and how that might play. If it's a melee spec, range spec, we don't know. But it looks pretty badass on the trailer. So, Aldrachi Reavers 2 set is going to cause the Reaver's Glaive damage is increased by 60%, and other physical only damage is increased by 30%. Just raw throughput. And now, the 4 set is going to differ from Havoc and Vengeance. For Havoc, Fury of the Eldrachi further empowers Blade Dance when cast after Chaos Strike, increasing slashes to 12. Very nice. Reaver's Mark now stacks up to 2 times and further empowers Chaos Strike when cast after Blade Dance, applying an additional stack for 100% of normal duration. And for Vengeance, Fury of the Eldrachi further empowers Soul Cleave when cast after Shear, increases slashes to 12. Reaver's Mark now stacks up to 2 times and further empowers Shear when cast after Soul Cleave and applying an additional stack for 100% of normal duration. Again, pure throughput once again. And for Havoc, Fellscarred, first of all, Invocation Aura deals 30% increased damage, increases Chaos Strike damage by 30% when active. For Vengeance, it does the same, but increases Soul Cleave damage by 30% instead of Chaos Strike. And then for Fellscarred 4 set, we have that, first of all, for Havoc, entering Demon form now immediately induces a Demon Surge and shatters a Demon Soul Fragment that grants 20% increased damage for 10 seconds. And for Vengeance, entering Demon form now immediately induces a Demon Surge and shatters a Demon Soul Fragment that grants 20% increased damage for 15 seconds. This is really cool, actually. I have played a little bit of Demon Hunter. It's a very fun, edgy class. And I do like Fellscarred. I think it's going to obviously be, again, more Mythic Plus focused, if I understand this correctly, with the instant Demon Surge and Soul Fragment shattering with a DPS increase. But actually, I mean, I think having a buff like that into a tier, like built into a tier set that is just, you know, increased damage for X amount of seconds, I think is going to be really good. And now, of course, how does the set look like? For Demon Hunter, this is the set. Looks very similar to a Midrasil when I look at it this way. At least I think so. Oh, I like this one. I like the colors of this. This is very edgy. This is very cool. Overall, I would not say it's a bad set. I think I would rather like to see how this looks on female models, if I'm honest. I think Demon Hunters just in general look a little bit better when they're female, more agile. But yeah, super awesome. I actually would love to try and transmog this set if I was playing DH. So yeah, let's move on. We're going to be now looking at Druid. So first of all, Druid of the Claw is used by Feral Druids and by Guardian Druids. The 2 set is going to cause Ravage, increases your haste by 10%, chance to critically strike by 10%, and the damage of your bleeds deal by 30% for 5 seconds. Ravage is an ability you get with this specialization, and it's actually super fun to use. I really enjoyed it. Anyways, the 4 set is going to differ from Feral and from Guardian. So for Feral, is going to make it so that Ravage has a 40% chance to make your Ravage your target again 4 seconds later at 100% of the initial power. So I guess it's going to hit it again 4 seconds later. This seems really complex, but we'll see how it goes. And then Ravage has a 40% chance to make your Ravage your target again 4 seconds later at 60% effectiveness. So again, just raw damage increase, both play around Ravage, of course, because that's the ability that Druids of the Claw get. So now we got Elun's Chosen. This one is for Balance and for Guardian. So for Balance, Starfire's damage is increased by 25%. Gaining Astral Power with Starfire has a 50% chance to launch a Star Surge at a victim at 50% effectiveness. So again, Druids love this. Having some sort of quirky procs that has a chance, for example, to launch a Star Surge, it's going to be super fun to play. I already know it, depending on how strong that Surge is going to feel, how it's going to look, how much it's going to proc. You know, these are just raw percentages for now. And for Guardian, Trash damage increased by 20%. Trash has a 40% chance to launch a Star Search at a victim at 65% effectiveness. Again, super cool, super spammy. Guardian Druid is a very spammy class. It's supposed to be that way. And having a chance to launch a Star Surge at a victim on top of your spamming is going to be really good. Now the 4 set. So for Balance Druid, on impact, Star Surges launched by Starfire split up to 3 additional targets at 80% effectiveness and grant a stack of Gathering Moonlight. Causing Fury of Elune or Full Moon consumes Gathering Moonlight to increase your damage by 4% per stack. Super cool set. And for Guardian, on impact, Star Surges launched by Trash split up to 3 additional targets at 20% effectiveness and grant a stack of Gathering Moonlight. Casting a Lunar Beam consumes Gathering Moonlight to increase your damage by 4% for 12 seconds. Super cool. As I said, this one actually already sounds really good, so I can't wait to see how the others look like. All right, so moving on to Keeper of the Groove. This one can be played by either Balance or Resto. So for Balance, casting Celestial Alignment calls upon the assistance of a Dryad for 10 seconds that casts Star Search at 70% effectiveness and a Starfall at 100% effectiveness. While for healers, it's going to cause it so that casting Incarnate Tree of Life or Convoke calls upon the assistance of a Dryad for 5 seconds, and that casts Tranquility at 50% effectiveness and instantly regrowths your lowest health ally. Oh, that's really strong. I mean, I've played a lot of Resto Druid. This seems really strong already. So again, for Balance, the Foresight is going to make it so that when your Dryad fades, your next 2 Star Surges deal damage for an additional amount equal to 5% of your damage done while it was active, and splash 20% of their damage onto nearby enemies. Reduced beyond 5 targets. And for Resto, when your Dryad fades, your next 2 Swiftmans heal for an additional amount equal to 5% of your healing done while it was active, and splash 25% of that healing onto nearby allies reduced beyond 5 targets. Seems pretty solid, especially for healer. I think for Balance, I would probably still rather play Elun's Chosen, but still pretty good. And now lastly, we got Wildstalker. This one is for Feral and for Balance. So for Feral, the rate at which Bloodseeker Vines grow is increased by 40%. Tiger's Fury causes Bloodseeker Vines to grow on up to 3 valid nearby enemies. That's a dot, by the way, that you get. It's just a damage over time effect, Bloodseeker Vines. And for Restoration, the rate at which Symbiotic Blooms grow is increased by 40%. Casting Regrowth with Clear Casting causes Symbiotic Blooms to grow on up to 2 valid nearby allies, and that's obviously a healing over time effect that you sometimes proc on your allies. This was really good in Mythic Plus so far. Depending on scaling, it might also be good for raiding. We will see. And the Foresight for Feral causes it so that Bloodseeker Vines have a 20% chance to trigger Bursting Growth every 2 seconds at 100% effectiveness. Each stack of Bloodseeker Vines on an enemy increases Bursting Growth's damage taken by 30%. And for Healer, Symbiotic Blooms has a 20% chance to trigger Bursting Growth every 2 seconds at 100% effectiveness. Each stack of Symbiotic Blooms on an ally increases Bursting Growth's healing taken by 30%. So it's just healing over time, damage over time. Nothing insanely quirky. That's what sometimes disappoints me about tier sets, when they're just a raw number increase. While, summoning a Dryad is really cool to me, especially when that NPC is going to cost or cast rather for example, Tranquility, right? That seems super cool. And now let's see how the sets look like. So for Druid, this is the tier set. I think it's visually probably one of the worst ones that we've had. I'm just not a big fan of the theme, but let me know what you guys think of this one. All right, now we got Evoker on the menu. So first of all, we got Chrono Ward, and this one is either for the Augmentation or Preservation class. Tip of the Scale's cooldown is reduced by 60 seconds. That's the one that makes your cast an instant. And then the 4-piece causes your Temporal Burst, causes Chrono Flames to strike 1 additional target and repeat 10% additional damage or healing up to a maximum of, something scaling. That's all right. Nothing really crazy. Now, Flame Shaper is the one that can be used by either Preservation, the healer class, or Devastation. That's the caster damage class. The 2-set does the following. Engulf stokes your inner flame, increases your damage and healing over time by 40%, and increasing your chance to gain Essence Burst by 50% for 12 seconds. Stacks up to 2 times, multiple applications might overlap. That's good, because I guess it's going to increase your Essence Burst by 100% because you get 2 stacks. So I like that. I like when there's something that actually changes your gameplay. And now for the 4-set, you get a different one for Devastation and Preservation. So for Dev, consuming Essence Burst during Inner Flame fires an Essence Bomb at your target, damaging nearby enemies for, whatever spell power, reduced beyond 5 targets. That's pretty solid. Consuming Essence Burst during Inner Flame fires an Essence Bomb at your target, healing nearby allies for XY healing power, reduced beyond 5 targets. Pretty solid. Now we got Scale Commander. This one is used either Augmentation or Devastation. So the 2-piece makes it so that while flying during Breath of Eon / Deep Breath, and for 10 seconds after, you command a squadron of true Drakthir who will attack your targets with Disintegrate Empire. I like that. That's awesome. And now this is a 2-set, I guess, for just for the other specialization. It does the same thing, it's just repeated. And now for the 4-set, again for Dev, while your squadron is active, your Mass Disintegrate strikes up to 2 additional targets. In addition, your squadron assists you for 5 additional seconds. I like that. And now for AUG, while your squadron is active, your mass eruption strikes up to 2 additional targets. In addition, your squadron assists you for 5 additional seconds. That's good. I do like this skill commander a lot, actually, this time around. And now if we look at the visuals, this is how the set looks like. I think it's a really cool looking set, actually. The only set part is that you're only going to see the shoulders once again. But overall, I actually think it looks pretty good. All right, so let's talk about Hunter. First of all, we got Dark Ranger. This one is either used by Beast Mastery or by Marksmanship. Black Arrow damage increased by 10% and Bleak Powder damage increased by 20%. Firing a Black Arrow reduces the cooldown of Call of the Wild by 2 seconds. Nice cooldown reduction. We like that. And for Black Arrow damage increased by 10% and Bleak Powder damage increased by 20%. So, by the way, Bleak Powder is the AoE, the cleave damage that you do with this spec. Firing a Black Arrow reduces the cooldown of True Shot by 1 second. Awesome. Now, the 4 set. Withering Fire's Black Arrow damage is increased by 25%. Consuming Death Blow has a chance to cause all Black Arrow barrages during your next Withering Fire to fire 1 additional Black Arrow. Cool, because Death Blow is obviously the proc that gives you a random like execute spell, kill command or whatever. Yeah, I think this is cool. This is not bad. Especially because you're going to be reducing your main cooldowns. And I think this can work really well in some fights. But also sometimes you're then just holding it for trinkets, which sucks. Now let's move on to the Pack Leader. This one is either used by Survival or by Beast Mastery. Bat damage increased by 15% and Beast damage increased by 15%. Summoning a beast grants 8% haste, mastery, or critical strike chance based on the beast summoned for 8 seconds. And for BM, bat damage increased by 5 already because that's already a massive DPS increase. And beast damage increased by 15%. Summoning a beast grants 8% haste, mastery, or critical strike chance based on the beast summoned. So yeah, because you're summoning beasts all the time, and you know they do more damage, and then they give you some sort of stack as well of stats. Really cool. And the 4 set for Pack Leader, summoning a beast has a 25% chance to rouse the nearby wildlife into a stampede, charging your target and dealing XY damage, physical damage to your enemies over 7 seconds. Your chance to summon and stampede is increased 100% while you have lead from the front. So yeah, lead from the front is just like another buff that you get from the it's a proc basically that you get when you cast either Bestial Wrath or Coordinated Assault, right? So it means that when you're gonna be using your big cooldown, you're gonna actually just do even more damage. And now we got Sentinel. This one is for Survival and for Marksman. So for MM, when Lunar Storm fades, gain the boon of Elune, causing your next 2 aim shots to deal arcane damage and have their damage increased by 20%. When Lunar Storm fades, gain boon of Elune, causing your next 2 wildlife bombs to deal arcane damage, wildfire bombs to deal arcane damage and have their damage increased by 60%. And then the 4 set, Sentinel's damage is increased by 25%. Abilities that consume the boon of Elune are guaranteed to apply 2 stacks of Sentinel. So again, just raw throughput buff. And the tier set, damn Hunters, I'm very, very happy for you because you guys got a very banger set for the first time in a while. I'm not a fan of the hood because it's just a regular hood. Doesn't, you know, cover your face or anything like that. But the edgy purple vibes that we get here are actually really, really cool. So congrats, guys. All right, so moving on to Mage, Frostfire. It's used by Fire and Frost, as the name implies. So for Fire, Comet Storm, Ice Nova, and Frostfire Burst deal 10% increased damage and now apply Ignite at 150% effectiveness. And for Frost Mage, Meteor, Frostfire Burst, and Frostfire Bolt deal 10% more damage and now apply Ignite, dealing an additional 30% damage over 9 seconds. And the 4 set, casting Glacial Spike has a 100% chance to also cast a Pyroblast at 100% effectiveness. Additionally, Pyroblast now benefits from Ignite. Awesome. Casting Pyroblast has a 20% chance to also cast a Glacial Spike at 100% effectiveness that doesn't root. Additionally, Glacial Spike now benefits from Ignite. So it's cool just using the quirky abilities, you know, summoning different stuff. It's really cool. Now we got Spellslinger. This one is for Arcane and Frost. So for Arcane, Arcane Blast damage increased by 20%. Direct Splinter damage has a 50% chance to grant a stack of Arcane Harmony. And for Frost, Ice Lance and Icicles damage increased by 20%. Direct Splinter damage has a 25% chance to grant a stack of Cold Front. So cool, you're getting, you know, just a passive damage buff with, you know, a proc basically when you're doing damage. Cool, doesn't really change the game. Now the 4 set, let's see. Arcane Orb has a 100% chance to grant a stack of Arcane Harmony up to 5 times. Upon reaching maximum stacks of Arcane Harmony, gain Intuition. Oh, awesome. So, you know, you're going to be getting Intuition again. and you'll be able to spam your spells. And let's see how it is for the other spec. When Frozen Orb deals damage to one or more enemies, it has a 50% chance to grant a stack of Cold Front. When Cold Front summons a Frozen Orb, increase your spell damage by 10% for 10 seconds. I like this. I think it's going to basically make it so that you are using a lot more. You're doing a lot more AoE damage for Frost once again. Sun Fury, this one is for Arcane and for Fire. Spellfire Sphere, spell damage bonus increased by raw percent. Your Arcane Phoenix has a 25% chance to cast an exceptional spell without consuming a Spellfire Sphere. So that's really cool. I like that as well because, you know, an exceptional spell is always more fun than a regular one. When Phoenix expires, it empowers you even further beyond, granting a lesser time warp and fire, frost, damage increased by 10 seconds. So yeah, I think that the Sun Fury is going to be pretty cool to play. Again, it's raw damage increase. Nothing crazy for Mage. I do, however, like the fact that you're going to be getting Cold Front, and then Cold Front can obviously summon a Frozen Orb. So that might be really good for AoE. Maybe it's going to be Frost Mage meta this time around, because we're always playing either Fire or Arcane, I feel like. And the set looks like this. I think it's a pretty good looking set. I like it. Very straight to the point, you know, both visually for Mage, and obviously the tier set is very straight to the point as well. So moving on to Monk. So first of all, Conduit of the Celestials. This one is for either DPS or for healer. Heart of the Jade Serpent additionally triggers for 8 seconds at 100% effectiveness after you cast Slicing Winds. A Heart of the Jade Serpent additionally triggers for 8 seconds at 100% effectiveness after you cast Thunder Focus T. Awesome. Heart of the Jade Serpent reduces your haste by 15% while active and for 4 seconds afterwards. So that's the 4 set. Very short bonus for this one. So Master of Harmony. This one is again used for either for healer or for tank. For Mistweaver, gaining vitality has an increasing chance to cause your next Tiger Palm to unleash a harmonic surge, dealing XY nature damage split between your target and other nearby enemies, and healing up to 5 injured allies. Oh, I like that. And for Brewmaster, gaining vitality has an increasing chance to cause your next Tiger Palm to unleash a harmonic surge, dealing damage and healing up to 5 injured allies. So I guess it's gonna be cool because you're also gonna be healing a little bit with tank, right? And the 4 set for Mistweaver, casting Focused Thunder T guarantees that your next 2 casts of Tiger Paw will trigger a harmonic surge. That's again really good. Casting guarantees that your next 2 casts of Tiger Paw will guarantee a trigger of Harmonic Surge. So you're just, yeah, it's cool. I think this one is going to be pretty fun. And now Shadowpan, this one is for Windwalker and for Brewmaster. Flurry Strikes deal 30% more damage and activate Storm, Earth, and Fire instantly, granting stacks of Flurry Strikes that trigger on your next attack at 100% effectiveness. And again, Flurry Strikes deal 30% more damage, and activating Weapons of Order instantly grants 10 stacks of Flurry Strikes that trigger on your next attack at 100% effectiveness. And the Shadowpan 4th piece does that the following. Flurry charge generation is increased by 100%, and Flurry Strikes triggers every 120 energy spent during Storm, Earth, and Fire. And for tank, Flurry charge generation is increased by 100%, and Flurry Strikes triggers every 120 energy spent during Weapons of Order. And now, of course, this is what the tier set looks like. I think it looks really good, actually. I'm a big fan. It looks really nice on human, at least. I wonder what it's going to look like on other races. But this is nothing to complain about. I think monks will be very happy, especially because the chest piece looks really cool, and you can combine it with other items. And yeah, happy transmogging, guys. All right, finally, it's my class. It's Paladin. Let's talk about it. So first of all, Herald of the Sun. This one is either used by Holy or by Ret. Dawnlight's healing and damage is increased by 30%, and you gain Solar Wrath after Avenging Wrath fades, causing Sun's avatar effects to linger for an additional 10 seconds. So, you know, raw increase to Dawnlight, and then making the buff stay a little bit longer. It's identical for both specs. And then for the 4-piece, Solar Wrath increases the effectiveness of your next Holy Power spenders by 15% and grants you 2 Dawnlight. So it's going to be cool. You'll be getting more Dawnlight from 4 set. It's also going to be stronger because of the 2 set. And I do also believe that there was a little change going into the Holy Paladin, or just Paladin hero talents in general, where you're going to be having more dawn lights, I think, after your cooldowns. I'm not 100% sure if that is actually going to make it to live, but it does seem we're going to be getting dawn light from this, and it's going to be stronger in general, and then we're going to have the effect staying around for a little bit longer. Now we got Lightsmith. This one is used by either Prot or by Holy. This was the meta for Season 1, I believe, because the buffs were really strong. Hammer and Anvil's damage is increased by 15%. It can also be activated by at 100% effectiveness. I'm not really sure how this works. I don't fully understand this. I know it's a proc, and I guess it's going to just be procking more often. And then the 4-piece, Hammer and Anvil also grants a stack of Masterwork, causing your next Holy Armament to cast one lesser version of itself on a nearby ally for each stack. So you're just going to be buffing people more, and you're going to be getting more procs. I'm not 100% sure how this is going to work in practice, but I'm excited to see. And then Templar, this one is obviously not used by Holy. This one is either for Prot or for Ret. Your Empyrean Hammer deals 20% increased damage, increased critical strike damage, and its critical strikes have 50% chance to grant an additional stack of Light's Deliverance. And then the 4 set, Hammer of Light deals 35% increased damage to its primary target and strikes 3 additional secondary targets. It can now be cast one more time after either Eye of the Tear or Wake of Ashes, depending on if you're Ret or Prot. Cool, I like this. Templar seems cool, and Herald of Sun seems cool, but Lightsmith just seems, again, very passive, so we will see how this is going to be in practice. But the tier set looks pretty cool. I don't like the helmet, but everything else is really, really good. And I mean, I can even see a lot of people actually liking the helmet, if I'm honest. We've never had anything like this in WoW. But I think this set is phenomenal once again. Wow, this just screams Blood Elf. Obviously, I'm a bit of a fanboy here. I'm not, exactly the most fair when it comes to tier set comparisons because I love the Knight look. But yeah, this is insane. This version especially. This is probably going to be LFR. Hopefully not, because it looks the best. Yeah, these are really good. Moving on to Priest, we're going to start with Archon. That's the one that makes your Halo, like the round thing, stronger. Halos generate an additional 10 sanity over 5 seconds, and Resonate Energy additionally increases the damage of your Devouring Plague by 5%. And for Holy, Halos reduce the cooldown of your Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctify by 5 seconds, and Resonant Energy additionally increases the healing of your Holy Words by 5%. I like this. CDR is always fun. While Power Surge is active, every 2 casts of either Devouring Plague or of Holy Word Serenity or Sanctify adds another Halo to the effect at 100% effectiveness up to 2 times. So we like that. Even more Halos, even more stuff like that going on. This is going to be really good for, obviously, for Holy and for Shadow. All right, so Oracle is for Holy and for Discipline. It starts off by making it so that casting Prayer of Mending heals your target for even more. That's really cool. Your first bolt of each penance cast damages or heals for 200% more. Wow, so just buffing the first bolt is really interesting. Casting Premonition of Piety or Premonition of Solace grants 2 stacks of Premonition of Insight at 100% effectiveness. Consuming a stack of Premonition of Insight increases your haste by 1% for 10 seconds. So you're just getting buffs that are already built into Oracle. You're going to be getting haste as well. Pretty solid change. Now we got Void Weaver. This one is obviously for either Discipline or for Shadow. It's the one that was summoning that massive orb that was doing a lot of damage. Void Blast and Penance damage is increased by 40%, and Void Blast's cast time is reduced by 20%. That's the 2 set. And then, obviously, for Shadow, Void Blast damage is increased by 40%, and Void Blast's cast time is reduced by 20%. Void Blast cooldown is reduced by 50%. So the cooldown reduction is important because that is what summons the orb. Of course, it's different for Holy and for Disc. Maybe Disc with 50% would be just too broken. You would be like perma-ramping. Now, the 4 set. Void Blast now also causes Entropic Rift to grow. Collapsing Void increases Entropic Rift's damage by an additional 10%, and the damage of your next Mind Blast is increased by up to 200% based on the size of Entropic Rift when it collapses. Void Blast now causes Entropic Rift to grow. Collapsing Void increases Entropic Rift's damage by an additional 20%, and damage of your next Void Turret is increased by up to 200% based on the size of the Entropic Rift when it collapses. So, yeah, cool. I like the fact that, it's just going to make it so that if you play your class correctly, you're gonna get an even bigger buff. But if you play your class wrong, if you like fucked up, then you're gonna do even less damage. It's pretty interesting. But I like it. I actually like all of them. They're just some of them are just passive increases as most of the tier sets. But I do like some of the quirk they've added. And now visually, this is the priest. Looks very looks cool, looks edgy. Gives me more of a shadow priest vibe than anything else, but that's good because, you know, I think edgy transmogs are pretty popular in the community. All right, so moving on to Rogue, we got Deathstalker first. This one is for either the Assassination or Subtlety spec. So for Assassination, Shiv increases the effectiveness of all Deathstalker damage effects and damage bonuses by 50% while active. Symbols of Death increases the effectiveness of all Deathstalker damage effects and damage bonuses by 30% while active. The Forset makes it so that Shiv has 2-second increased duration and consumes an application of your active Deathstalker's mark when activated. And for Sub, Symbols of Death has 2 seconds increased duration and consumes an application of your active Deathstalker's mark when activated. I feel like this one just really benefits subtly, but what do I know? I mean, it just kind of seems that way for me. So we got Fatebound. This one is for either Assassination or for Outlaw. Ghostly Strike deals 50% increased damage and has 4-second increased duration. Edge Case now flips an additional Fatebound coin, and activating Ghostly Strike triggers its effect. And for Assassination, Kingsbane deals 10% increased damage and has 4-second increased duration. Edge Case now flips an additional Fatebound coin, and activating Kingsbane increases its effect. Yeah, so just buffing the stuff. And now we got Fatebound. Forset, having a lucky Fatebound coin reduces the cooldown of Adrenaline Rush by 30 seconds and Ghostly Strike by 15. And then having a lucky Fatebound coin reduces the cooldown of Deathmark by 30 seconds and Kingsbane by 15. Wow, this seems kind of insane for Fatebound, if I'm honest, for Sub and Outlaw. And let's see, Trickster, this one is either used by, obviously, by Outlaw or by Sub. Unseen Blade deals 30% increased damage and has a 30% chance to immediately refresh its cooldown. Coup de Grace may now be activated a second time within 5 seconds, increasing 100%, dealing 100% of normal damage. Pretty solid. Again, Rogue is a very complex class, and I know I do think that some of the hero talents are known to be like very hard to play around. So I like that they actually put a lot into these. It feels like they are gonna be doing quite a lot. But yeah, I'm not sure how... I don't know how common it is to press Shiv. Again, I've not played the latest, you know, version of all of these specs, so we will see how it goes. Now, visually, Rogues, I mean, come on, guys. Come on. The rotation may not be that fun, or the class might be super hard, but Transmog is just easy because you guys get the best sets in the fucking world every single time, I swear. All right, moving on to Shaman. So first, we're going to start off with Farseer's 2-piece. Farseer is either for healer or for elemental, so for caster. Ancestral Swiftness summons an empowered ancestor for 15 seconds that deals 10% increased damage and healing. That's cool, I guess. And then for Forset, for Resto, Ancestral Swiftness reduces the cast time of your spells by 25%. The mana cost of your spells by 25% increases the recharge rate of Lava Burst and Riptide by 50% for 8 seconds. So you just get a buff. And for Elemental, Ancestral Swiftness reduces the cast time of your spells by 25%. The mana cost of your spells and increases the recharge rate of Lava Burst, of course, because you don't use Riptide, by 50% for 8 seconds. Very straightforward. I like it a lot. Stormbringer is either for melee or range DPS, so enhancement or elemental. Ascendance has a 100% chance to grant a charge of Tempest, and every 3 Awakening Storms now activates Ascendance for 6 seconds, while for, obviously for Elemental, every 6 Awakening Storms is going to activate Ascendance for 6 seconds. So it's cool. I think another proc like this is going to be super fun. Shaman's already probably happy about this, and I think they might be, we'll see, M+ meta again. I'm not sure. It's too hard to tell just from patch notes for me personally, but it might happen. Again, let's see what Stormbringer Forset does. Nature damage increased by 3%, and Ascendance empowers your next 2 Tempests to gather a storm above that deals XY nature damage to its primary target and reduce damage to nearby enemies after 1.5 seconds. That's huge. Nature damage increased by 5%, and Ascendance empowers the next 2 Tempests to gather a storm above that deals 400% attack power, nature damage to its primary target, and reduced damage to nearby enemies after 1.5 seconds. That's really, really good. Now, if you look at Totemic, this one is either for restoration or for enhancement. The two-piece does this. After you consume all the whirling element modes, you cast Downpour at 200% effectiveness at your Surging Totem's location. It's very good. After you consume all the whirling element modes, your Surging Totem casts Primordial Storm at 200% effectiveness at its location. Again, straight to the point, just buffing the totem that you get. After casting Downpour, your next Chain Heal, Healing Wave, or Healing Surge casts again at 150% effectiveness. I always like the repetition of casts. In Shaman, it was the class identity before, and I'm glad they're leaving some of it in. After casting Primordial Storm, your next Lava Lash or Fire Nova casts again at 150% effectiveness. I think Totemic is okay. I do like Stormbringer a lot. I like Totemic for healer as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. Shaman tier set, you guys look like a similar Paladin this time around, actually. We originally thought this is going to be a different tier set. I thought people were mixing this one with another one for Shaman. It looks pretty damn good. I think on female orc, I think that's the model that's being displayed on here. It's gonna look very, very good in my opinion. All right, so Warlock is a class I'm not insanely familiar with, but I do obviously watch Warlock players and I try to analyze their damage sometimes. So we're gonna start off with Diabolist. This one is either used by Destruction or by Demonology. Chaos Bolt and Rain of Fire summons a Demonic Oculus up to 3. Consuming Demonic Art flings your Demonic Oculi at your current target, exploding for XY fire damage and fire damage to enemies within 10 yards. For Demonology, Helden of Gul'dan casts at full power, summons a Demonic Oculus up to 3. Consuming Demonic Art flings your Demonic Oculi at your target, exploding, doing fire damage to enemies within the yards. That's pretty cool. I like that. More demons, throwing the demon as well. Very good. And that's just the 2 set. So the 4 set, Demonic Oculi analyze the battle while active and deliver information to you as they explode. Increase your intellect by 2% for 10 seconds. That's funny. Just a raw buff like that is like super unusual, but we'll take that. So now we got Hellcaller. This one is either used by Destruction or by Affliction. The 2 set does this. Mark of Xavius increases Blackened Soul damage by an additional 3% per stack. Malevolence increases the stack count of Wither by an additional 2 stacks. And obviously for Affliction, it does the same, just 6% per stack. I guess it just makes sense to do higher on that spec. Now we got Hellcaller 4 set. Casting Malevolence grants 2 stack of Backdraft and prevents Blackened Soul from consuming stacks while dealing damage 15% faster for 8 seconds. And for Affliction, casting Malevolence grants 2 stacks of Tormented Crescendo and prevents Blackened Soul from consuming stacks while dealing damage 25% faster for 8 seconds. Just, raw percent damage buffs, kind of. Now we got Soul Harvester. This one is, again, either for Affliction or for Demonology. Shadow of Death unleashes your Demonic Soul to assault your current target for 12 seconds, dealing some spell damage, shadow damage, and shadow damage to enemies within 10 yards with each swipe. I like that. Demonic Soul damage increased by 45%, and Wiccan Ramping damage increased by 45%. Your Demonic Soul generates 1 Soul Shard every 3 seconds while assaulting enemies. Yeah, I think the Soul Shard generation of this one is good. Again, I've played a little bit of Warlock, and I think that this in practice might be a pretty fun thing to do. Let's see how the transmog looks like. I mean, I already saw this one. This was one of the first ones I've seen, and I was very happy with it, especially the blue version. I think anything in blue this tier goes really hard because it's kind of void themed anyways, right? And I think the set looks really insane. So especially the blue one and the horns obviously are just super cool and super unique. And I do think that the tier sets sound straightforward and unique as well. Yo, what's up, guys? The last one we're gonna go over is the Warrior. So first off, we're gonna start with Colossus. This one is either for arms or for protection. Demolish damage increased by 20%, and critical strike damage of your abilities is increased by up to 20% on targets affected by your Demolish for 10 seconds based on the number of stacks of Colossal Might consumed. So you're getting Colossal Might, then it makes your Demolish stronger, and the extra debuff you put on is obviously gonna be stronger if you had more stacks. Just typical gameplay, rewarding for good players. Probably not that rewarding for when you mess up. And now the 4 set for arms. Demolish increases the critical strike chance of your next 2 mortal strikes by 100%. Mortal Strike, critical strikes increase your rend and deep wound damage by 100% for 8 seconds. That's a pretty big buff. And for protection, Demolish increases the critical chance of your next 2 shield slams by 100%. Shield slam critical strikes increase your rend and deep wounds damage by 100% for 8 seconds. Obviously for prot, this buff is a lot smaller, but for arms is a very, very big buff. Now we got Mountain Thane. This one can be either Fury or Protection. So the 2 set. Thunder Blast has a 35% chance to call down 8 ionizing strikes on affected targets. Each strike deals 20%, it's here, 20% of attack, power, nature damage. I like this. I really like this. I always loved Mountain Thane. I thought it was like such a crazy good warrior, like style or like vibe. Ionizing strikes deal 50% more damage and have a 20% chance to grant a charge of Thunder Blast. This is really cool. I think Protection Warrior, I already kind of want to play this, even though Colossus is probably more fun because you have an additional, effect. You have damage. You can also negate CC with it, but I do think that this is actually really good. Now we got Slayer. This one is for the DPS specs. Execute damage is increased by 20%, and executes from sudden death, which is the proc that gives you execute, have a 100% chance to per stack of overwhelmed on the target to trigger a Slayer strike at 100% effectiveness. That's huge. Now the 4 set for arms. Overpower damage increased by 20%, and Overpower has a 2% chance per stack of overwhelmed on the target to trigger Reap and Storm at 100% effectiveness. And for Fury, Raging Blow, damage is increased by 20%, and Raging Blow has a 2% chance per stack of overwhelmed on the target to trigger Reap the Storm at 100% effectiveness. I like this. This is really good, especially just the raw buff like that seems really insane. I don't know how insane Slayer might be on either arms or Fury, but I like all of them. I think all warrior, these sound so powerful, and that's a thing that they do really well with warriors, in my opinion. They make them sound really powerful and really strong. Even the names of the abilities are awesome to read. Now, how does the tier set look like? This was the one that I think the first one they showed on the trailer. I like it. I don't like the helmet. I mean, I don't know how the helmet is going to look like. It's probably going to have physics on this. I'm not 100% sure. But everything that besides the helmet looks absolutely insane to me. I like the chunky warrior, vibe, rough edges, spikes, chains as well. Glowing chains is really good. I'm not even a warrior main. I'm not. I do play warrior here and there for fun. I think it's probably the most fun, tanking class. I would say probably, one of them because you feel very chunky. But God, this tier set looks insane. And I think, yeah, it just makes me want to roll a chunky warrior and just have this tier set on me. It's really, really sick. So that was it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it through a couple of classes and checked out my thoughts and just explanation of some of the mechanics, I would really appreciate a subscription to the channel and a like. It means a lot to me. Doesn't really cost you anything at all. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and peace out.